Good morning, good afternoon. We are experiencing another wonderful warm day in Las Vegas.
Wonderful Las Vegas.
We come here to do these podcasts. We also fly back and forth to Hawaii, and because we have some businesses there as well as here. But one of the things that's always interesting to figure out, like in Hawaii, people that live on Oahu, that are residents of Oahu, never go to Waikiki. And that's where everybody goes to when they go to Hawaii.
That's right.
And so everyone that I've met here in Vegas never goes to the Strip.
Same thing.
Same thing, but everyone comes here to go to the Strip. So I don't know why I said that. Doesn't really have anything to do with our podcast, but here we are in beautiful Las Vegas. The name of our podcast is Who Closed Last Night? My name is Stan.
My name is Zach, and we're brought to you by Walnut Street Hospitality Group.
And what do? We run some businesses, we own some businesses, and what we are some entrepreneurs.
That's right. That's right.
And
hardworking people.
Hardworking people. And I think one of the things that we hope to bring to you is peace of mind and
some experience. I know that I've been working with you now for almost 10 years, and I think that if I got to meet the person that came into this position 10 years ago, it'd be a cool conversation, right? The growth. And I would just say that that growth is what we'd want to share with you guys, or even share some with us.
I think it's the growth, it's the experience. One of the things that made us, that was a catalyst for doing this podcast, was to try to help people not make the same mistakes that we made, or maybe to build ourselves into a resource so we could help other people not make the same mistakes, or be able to help them if they needed a mentor or a coach.
Or just answer some questions if you have some questions.
And they don't have to be questions about the hospitality industry or restaurants specifically. What we always say is that we run businesses that happen to be restaurants, and we're not just people that run restaurants.
Correct. And there's a difference.
There's some people would never understand that difference, but there's a huge difference. So today, what we're going to talk about, the topic today is called Don't Cheap, CHEAP, Don't Cheap Yourself Out of Revenue and Profits. And before we do that, and this is kind of something that means something to me. It might not mean something to everyone until we talk about it, but how do they get a hold of us?
All right. It's very, very easy, and it will take almost none of your time. So everybody out there should just do it. It costs nothing. So you're going to stop what you're doing. You're going to follow, like, and share. You can find us on Instagram at TikTok at whoclosedlastnight_. You can listen to us on Spotify. You can find us on Facebook at Who Closed Last Night. You can watch my mediocre face and his wonderful face on YouTube at Who Closed Last Night Podcast. And then, most favorite of all, you can send us your comments, your stories, your questions, really anything you want, to our email address at whoclosedlastnightpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, it costs you nothing. It's quick, it's fast, but it helps the algorithms a lot.
So it's kind of funny. You realize he had to stop there and pause because he was going to say something mean about my face. But anyway, He caught himself. But here we are. So this podcast, it might be a little different. So when times are tough, businesses tend to cut costs, right? They become cost containment Nazis. And I probably shouldn't have said Nazis, so excuse that.
I disagree with that.
We become cost containment
Police.
fanatics. And I think what I've learned over the years is that cost containment is always just one aspect of running a business. And yes, everybody's initial reaction is, oh my God, I got to cut costs.
The
knee jerk reaction. And I think one of the things that happens is when you cut costs, you cut quality, right? So all of a sudden, you're buying, instead of a prime piece of meat, you're buying a choice piece of meat. Instead of buying something fresh, you're buying that's something that's not fresh. Instead of buying, a good bourbon to go into your drinks, you're buying a well-brand bourbon. All of those things cheapen your reputation. They cheapen the expectation, which cheapens your value as a business. And I think people don't look at it that way. They're just trying to cut costs. A really, really good example that I want to give is when 2008 we had a recession, and the first thing a lot of people did was they cut their sales teams. And I was in the hotel industry then, so they trimmed down their sales team, their marketing team, or they just plain, other businesses got rid of sales and marketing because they didn't look at it necessarily as being a necessary operational part of their team.
It was extra. Plus, plus.
It was a plus, and I think what happens though is then later on, when they didn't have the results of the people selling or marketing, then there's nothing you can do to get that business back, right? Then you've put yourself into a corner of cost containment and not into a mode of building revenue. So you've cheapened yourself into a loss of revenue and a loss of profitability.
And your guests that return know the difference in whatever you're trying to cheapen. Not some people might not notice, but at some point you cut that too far, and it's no longer the place they want to patronize because it's not what they like anymore.
That's right. And we're not saying that cost containment is not important. I'm saying that cost containment goes hand in hand with revenue generation.
That's right.
Without either one of those, you're kind of hurting.
I think an example could be you could have, or if someone's ordering a steak, maybe the option is, hey, would you like to upgrade that to a tomahawk, right? And maybe you don't have a lot of tomahawks, but someone that might be interesting to someone, or a special. You dress it up nicely and call it a chef special and pair it with some wine. There's other ways to make that experience. Maybe it's not going cheaper, right? Maybe it's making it into experience that they can only get today.
Or an experience that is worth the cost.
It's valuable.
It's valuable, right?
That's right.
You've created something that has a perceived value.
Right.
And I think that's what most people tend in running smaller family style businesses. They forget about the perceived value and they go directly to cost containment. And I've seen that kick people in the ass more than once. So one of the things that again, and I'm going to go back to sales and marketing. You might not see a sales and marketing result immediately, but everyone that sells marketing or an ad somewhere is going to tell you that it's all about repetition.
Yes.
Right? You gotta continuously see your brand, your logo, hear the name out there all of the time, or you are forgotten. And so you might not have gotten to where to see the marketing or sales result immediately, but sales and marketing isn't about immediate. It's it could be, but it's usually about the future, right? We're selling things, we're posting things, we're marketing things because we're
planting a mustard seed.
We're planting a mustard seed.
That's right.
So I'm going to give an example, and then I can ask you for an example. But one of my examples is during that whole 2008 debacle when people were, the real estate industry kind of caved, and we got rid of some places got rid of their sales and marketing team. What happened is they didn't feel the effects of that for maybe 18 months. And then because they were hotels, right? So you're not,
You're
I
booked
mean,
up for a certain amount.
you were, yes, we were already booked up for a certain amount of time moving into the future. And it's always the sales and marketing team to continue
The
to
pipeline.
sell, to fill that pipeline. And
Right.
that's exactly what it's called. Same with banquets, right? You want to fill that pipeline. And you can't fill that pipeline if no one is selling that pipeline.
No leads.
No leads means no revenue. And I think one of the things that we did at that time was I don't believe we cut any sales and marketing within the company that I was with then, because we knew, just like everything else, this recession was going to be cyclical. It was
Yes.
going to end, and we didn't want to be standing there on the end of this with no business. What we did in a lot of instances is we were able to sell multiple year contracts at a cheaper price, but we got them for 2 years. So we knew that we were going to have them the year of the recession, and the year after. We might not have made as much money, but
But
we
you got
weren't going to
cash
be
flow.
an empty hotel.
Right. Right.
That's probably the biggest thing that I've seen, and I've got a couple more, but fire away.
I think mine kind of falls into a similar lane, and it was just a handful of years ago. C-19 or whatever you can call it. But in Hawaii, where it's predominantly a tourist-driven economy, and then the locals, the people that have moved there, everybody works in the service industry to some degree, or at least most people, the vast majority of people. And so when the tourist numbers fell, you started seeing businesses hurt and be impacted severely. And I think this is kind of when I learned this lesson that we're talking about today. Is I think I wanted to probably cut marketing because I looked at it like everybody else. Hey, we're going to cut this. Let's cut this. Let's adjust this. Let's keep an eye on this. There might be an opportunity there, but I think marketing was on my chop list, and you kind of sat me down and told me that hey, there's two sides to this. It's either you can hack everything away and keep hacking, but at some point you can't hack any more or any more than you already hacked, right? You got to stop somewhere unless you close the doors. And then the other side of that is increased revenue and revenue generation. And I think that that's a different perspective that I would say that's not the common perspective.
I would say you're right. I'm going to give you an example of something that's happening right now. So, in case you're watching this in 2025, it's now 2024. We might end up in a time capsule. Who knows? But obviously, this has been a tough year from, finances, with inflation, labor at this time. The labor market is not healthy, or is not as healthy as it should be, or the jobs market, I guess I should say. But one of the things, obviously we run some restaurants, and we're not into wasting labor. But one of the things that we know for sure is this too shall pass. And I think everybody always, wants to. Sometimes it's hard to see what's going to happen in the future, and while you're going through the pain of the present. And so one of the things that happens is we have a restaurant, a full service restaurant, and the managers get so tied up in cutting cost containment, that they, send the hostess home, send the bartender home. And then while we're trying to build a brunch business, all of a sudden we get busy. And there's no one, right? There's the manager who's greeting people or not at the
Right.
front door, who's taken the order or not, because they're busy trying to greet people at the front door.
They're stretched.
They're stretched beyond a quality level,
Yes. Even for them.
even for them. And they're
Yeah.
quality people, by the way.
Absolutely.
But that's one of those examples of cheapening yourself so much that you can't build business because no one wants to come back to an environment that they were ignored in.
You save a penny and you lose a dime.
You save a penny and you lose a dime. And I think that's one of the things, it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, I spoke to a manager the other day and I could tell there was something on his mind. And I just pushed a little bit and he said, I'm just really frustrated about our labor costs. And I listened to him because labor cost is an issue. But I think whenever you're trying to lower your labor costs, the other side of that is, hey, don't stop trying to lower your labor costs. Be smart about it, but let's figure out how to build revenue, right? Because that helps your labor cost.
Yes.
And I think that's when you look at these things, you can't cheap yourself out of revenue and profits, or you won't have either, and your labor costs will still be high.
You didn't fix anything.
You didn't
You
fix
created
anything.
a bigger issue that you have to now deal with.
Well, so now, I mean, let's just kind of take this forward. We haven't experienced this, but in other places that I have experienced this, is then all of a sudden, you know, let's just say you're 4 stars on Yelp or 4.5 stars on Yelp, and all of a sudden you've cheapened yourself to the point, you've shaved everything down to the point where you're barely having any service, barely having any quality. You know, barely putting food up in the window to feed the people that you weren't expecting.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, you're down to 3 stars on Yelp or TripAdvisor and Google. And what we found is most of our business comes from those
Review websites.
review websites, Google, TripAdvisor, and Yelp. And all of a sudden, you've gone from 4 stars, let's say, to 3 stars. You're not special anymore.
You're not special. And, you know, if you're unfamiliar with the neighborhood, everybody's walking around on their phone looking for where they're going to, you know, spend their time, dine, get a cocktail, go out to dinner, whatever it might be. And they're not going to go to the 3-star restaurant if there's a 4-star, 4.5-star, 5-star option in the same price point, right? Why would they?
Why would they? But all of that is about maintaining your quality and not cheapening the perception of your business. And so while you're out there thinking about what we're saying, you know, I'm sure some of you are saying, yeah, well, that's easy for you to say when, you know, it's not your business. Well, I'm here to tell you that this happens in our business. And one of the things that I think we've tried to do, we work very hard at, is not cheapening the value that you get or the perception of value that you get when you come into any of our locations. And I think that pays off, maybe not today,
Yes.
but tomorrow and the next day and next week and things like that. What do you think about all this?
I would agree, and I think probably because I probably subscribe to your leadership school. But I would also, I think of a couple opportunities that vendors have offered to us, right?
Right.
And so in our restaurants, we take a lot of pride in our quality of service. It's not perfect, but we're after it every day, right? And that's what the culture is. I would also say that we take pride in the quality of our offering, our product.
Yeah.
And I remember that one of our vendors came to us and offered this fully cooked, pre-packaged item that we offer, but we do it in house. We take it from, you know, a raw product. We season it. We roast it. We prepare it per recipe, like we've been doing since 2002, right? And well, we went there and tasted it, right? And I think we probably had the same thought. And not to be rude, this vendor's been very good to us, and there's actually some really good people that I enjoy working with at that. I'm sure they know who they are, but I kind of felt like insulted that because they know how hard we work, right? They've spoke to it, but they would, and I get it. They're salespeople. A closed mouth doesn't get fed. It all
meshes together somehow, right?
It's the opposite. It's their plate, right? And
Right.
they're pushing their plate. So I get it, but it just wasn't the same. And I think when we left there, we're like, our guests would know. immediately that this is not our product. This is not why we have any following. And this is part of why we've been successful is because we don't always take the easier or the cheaper route. We take the quality route, or, that's
try
the
to.
school of thought, right?
Yes, yes.
And I think that that's separated us continuously over the years in Hawaii that has a lot of small mom and pop businesses that I'm sure want to grow, but how can you grow when the quality of your product diminishes as you grow?
Right.
At
right.
some point, you hit that ceiling, and then you're not getting the new people in the door that are impressed, and you just kind of fall to the side.
I absolutely agree. I remember that time that you're referring to. And I think what really bothered me more than anything else about that particular event was they felt like we would lower our standards, which means that they didn't really know us.
Right.
And being a customer for so long and, our vendors are our partners.
That's right.
I felt like they just didn't, from that point on, they didn't really know who we were. We were just someone they were trying to sell some garbage to.
Yes. Yes.
That bothered me. And
I agree.
It bothers me to this day, right? Because that's not
What we're about.
what we're about. So anyway, the moral of this story is don't cheap yourself out of revenue or profits by cutting costs that will help you get revenue and profits, or cutting them to the point where it diminishes your revenue and profits and reputation.
And reputation. If you don't have people coming through your door, then what's the point?
What's the point?
It's an expensive hobby.
Yeah, we don't like expensive hobbies. So that's kind of our gig today is to tell you, times do get tough. Times are tough. Don't lose what you have trying to cut down what you have.
That's right.
What do you think? Is that a good message?
I think that's a good message. I think that that's a message that's cultivated from experience because, again, that's not my initial thought. My initial thought was hack, 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 right? And that tends to have the opposite effect. If you continue to push strong and keep your marketing maybe around, then you start to take over some market share, right? When everybody else is retreating, you're inserting yourself in front of their guests, and then you can win over some guests. I think that's great.
That's our story. We're sticking to it this time, at least for now. And so lastly, we need your help. We're trying to get 50 new people to come and follow us. And how do they do that?
This is how you do that. You're going to just take a moment out of your time. It costs you nothing, but it helps us out a lot. Follow, like, and share us. You can find us on Instagram at whoclosedlastnight_. That's the same as TikTok at whoclosedlastnight_. You can find us on Facebook at whoclosedlastnight. You can listen to us on Spotify and watch us on YouTube at Who Closed Last Night Podcast. And then the most important is you can send us your story, your experiences, some questions, maybe some feedback, or let us know that you're interested in being on the show. And you can send that to whoclosedlastnightpod, POD, at gmail.com. And we'd love to reply to you, share your stories with our audience, and grow this podcast to include you.
And there you have it. And so we're at that part of the podcast where we must bid you farewell, but we like to do it the island way. With that being said, aloha.